And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Business Focus Live with me, John, where we talk about business related topics as well as news from here around the world. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. And we're back. Thank you again for joining me today. So, today is October 8th. It's on a Friday as usual. So, here are the things that's been going on the past week or so. So Amazon just recently had an event launching several products, and one of the key main products that got my attention and got people's attention is the release of assistant robot called Astro. One would think that an assistant robot would be beneficial, but there has been trepidations regarding its features and capabilities. Is it really an assistant or a robot sent from hell? Here we'll talk about that in a bit. Next, we'll be talking about the ongoing battle between two retail giants, e-commerce giant Amazon versus retail giant Macy's over advertising space here. Next is for change. Disney is now suing other people, other company in this case, suing the heirs of Marvel genius or creator Stanley and Jack Kirby here. Why they're doing that? We'll delve deeper there. Next, we'll be talking about cryptocurrency is being more popular than ever, and obviously, if more companies, or in this case, other retails or payment establishments accepts cryptocurrency as a form of payment, as a currency, with the companies like Verifone here. So it's going to be a game changer. But how quickly people adapt to the new technology, we'll talk about that also. Next, we have one of the big unicorns in Southeast Asia here. The logistics company Ninja Van has already raised almost $600 million in capital. So meaning a lot of companies or investors are looking into this growth for the company here, in particular not just in Singapore but also here in our country, in the Philippines. And finally, the battle between man and animal continues here with otters invading the territory of human, and as much as even killing koi fish in Singapore. So we'll talk about that. Anyway, so to start off our first story, as mentioned, so Amazon just recently held releasing several products here for consumers to buy and use for convenience and so forth. And one of the key products that got a lot of people's attention is the robot Astro, not the Astro from the animation from when we were younger. According to the article here at techradar.com, Amazon's robot could be a dangerous smart home device, according to the leak here. And obviously, good. There are always good intention, but the question is the execution polished here? And as you can see here, how they're mocking the robot here. Now, it's a very diminutive device. So it has wheels. So it needs to be on a flat surface, and it has limitations. It cannot move up and down flight of stairs. So obviously the goal here is to monitor the surroundings area and report back to you, supposed to be. But obviously using AI as a technology here, but obviously AI hasn't reached to that point that it can be autonomous here, taking note of Tesla's full self-driving capability. But anyway, according to Vice Motherboard, who published the information here, they indicated that the robot's assistant feature may have some few flaws that could be alarming, and especially to those who are planning to buy this device. Now, obviously, Amazon, the company, is claiming that Astro has been regularly tested to ensure it's well. If they did ensure that, then there won't be any critics or criticisms from the reviewers or even in this particular article here. And they go on to say that Astro is terrible, not a terrible, it's terrible, and will almost certainly throw itself down a flight of stairs. So obviously it's not that fully well developed if it can do that by itself. And obviously the main way for it to roam around is using visual cues here, or detection, or even its in-person detection is even unreliable. So distinguishing who the owner is or who are intruders here, it's difficult to ascertain here. So being pegged as a home security device, I think the cost is around $1,000, so it's pretty expensive. Obviously, there are more alternative ways of utilizing home security here, namely, a camera at home, so you could just record it and it would alarm you automatically. And it goes on to note that it seems too fragile, and if you look at it closely, so it doesn't connote, durability and uh, that it would, survive a long wear and tear use over a long period of time. Yeah, as mentioned, it's going to cost $999 or around 50,000 pesos. So it's pretty expensive here. So obviously, there must be better ways here. Now, obviously, it has some aesthetic niceness for that. Maybe a companion for kids. But again, uh, is it collecting data here, and who's going to get the data here? Is it Amazon? Upon updates will get, store data here, recognizing who the people's here, the behavior within the household and so forth here. And the developer was quoted by Motherboard and stating that it could be potentially dangerous from anyone who actually rely upon it. So if you bought something you're trying to rely upon, maybe let's say if there's a problem, you could, it could detect that and call for help, or maybe call 911. And if that's not the case, then what's the whole point of, purchasing, an expensive device here? Anyway, an Amazon spokesperson goes on to say that these characterizations of Amazon's performance, mast and safety systems are simply inaccurate. Now, obviously, one has to make their own judgment with regards to, its validity here, but based on, the previews that we've seen in, you can check out in other videos, that, you know obviously you need complexity. It's not similar as the from Boston Dynamics Spot the dog, right? So you can see that it's more powerful, more advanced here. Now, can it do those complicated things? Obviously, it's still raw. It's not yet fully furnished or fully finished in terms of it still need human input in terms of being able to move around. And being autonomous is, I think we're still years or decades away from being able to realize that. Anyway, the spokesperson goes on to say that the robot or Astro went through rigorous testing on both quality and safety, including tens of thousands of hours testing with beta participants. But maybe those testing is not enough, because if people are saying that, there will always be flaws in software, which is kind of scary. That's why you have to iron it out before you even actually release it to the market. Imagine if a vehicle, a car that people drive, that they rely upon their lives when they're traveling from one place to another, and there are kinks there, would the company be held liable? Obviously, right? You could sue whether it's Toyota, Mitsubishi, or whatever car company here. And if there were any threats that, or accidents that were to occur, can we sue Amazon here? But anyway, it goes on to say that they include comprehensive testing on Astro's advanced safety system. Well, not advanced enough, so to speak. And then it was supposed to be designed to avoid objects, detect stairs, stop the device where and when necessary. Now, obviously, maybe that were their initial goals, but obviously the end product will speak for themselves. So question here is, will it be as intended, or will it be not fully formed, which is kind of concerning if you're seeing more and more products being released as a beta version rather than a full version, just like with, nothing against Tesla, but, advertising as a fully formed technology, which it hasn't even reached its potential or full capability of self autonomy here. Anyway, question here is, at the end of the day, should you be buying this device? Now, question here is, how much do you value your privacy here? Because you can just imagine that the device here is roaming around, following you around on a daily basis, tracking your movement, your behavior, and obviously this benefits Amazon here, who's trying to understand even further how human interacts with their devices at home. And which leads us to another question: will those data be transferred or relayed to the head office or to Amazon here, which is, if that's the case, then why would I give my personal information here? And obviously there are more better alternative ways to safeguard my household here. Now, according to Amazon on their part, has explained that Astros included several multiple features to improve privacy here, but the keyword is improve. So meaning it's not yet fully protected. So meaning your privacy is not 100% protected. So until they can do that, I'll be really be very apprehensive if whether I should purchase one. The price alone is kind of very off-putting in terms of a consumer standpoint, and obviously collecting of data and where it's going to be stored and eventually where it will it be end up is another here. Now, according to Amazon, any data that is sent to Amazon server is encrypted in transit. But again, when you say it's encrypted, it can be decrypted so that you could analyze the data here. It's as if those big tech companies have been transparent the whole time here, and so. But anyway, it's up to you. It's up to the consumers then to make their decisions whether to make this purchase or not here. Anyway, sticking with Amazon here, Amazon is in a battle of sorts for advertising supremacy here. So with regards to battling with Macy, if you're familiar, Macy is one of the big retailers in the United States, and one of their biggest known store is in New York, and they have this big advertisement of Macy's for the longest time, for half a century already. And guess what? Amazon is trying to buy that spot. And would it be would it be funny? You're going to a Macy's store and then you see outside there's a big advertisement stating Amazon. So would one think, if you went inside the store, that thinking that you are buying from Amazon rather than from Macy's? But anyway, so here, according to the article here at CNBC.com, Macy is trying to block Amazon's from advertising atop its Herald Square store. So you can see here their big store in New York, wherein you can see the big Macy's logo has been plastered for so long here. Now, obviously, they don't own the location; they're just renting it, and the company and Macy's agreement, I think, lapsed. And then the question here is, Amazon is trying to swoop in, and obviously for the landlords who owns the space, they're looking for a better pay here. And if Amazon is willing to pay top dollars, obviously just to compete with the likes of Macy's, is it's a win-win for them. But obviously on Macy's part, it seems unfair, and they're going to court battle to stop that partnership here. Now, the Macy's is in a legal battle with its landlord, as mentioned, for the billboard, as mentioned. And take note, it's their flagship store in New York here. So now Macy's claiming that any advertisement from its online competitor would cause immeasurable harm. Yeah, one would think, because the perception from people going to their store and would see the big Amazon logo and would think, am I really buying from Macy's or is it from Amazon? Could be confusing, right? But obviously, if you're Amazon it's a big coup if they're able to do that. And obviously, according to Macy's, they're going to say that damages to Macy's customers' goodwill, image, reputation, and brand should the prominent online retailers advertise on the billboard are impossible to calculate. Well, obviously, right? I think that's the main intention of Amazon here. But the question here, are there precedents or legalities that Macy can state that this is detrimental to competitive in terms of competitiveness here? Because obviously, there's an antitrust lawsuit levied against Amazon for being an monopolistic company here. But if they can do that, I think they can make a stronger case there. Anyway, Macy's has been advertising for that particular spot for, as mentioned, for more than half a century here, so since the inception of the company. The lease of the advertisement, as mentioned, expired back in August here, and then Macy's claimed that the the company that leases the facility, Kaufman, was already talking to a different company, in this case Amazon. So I think obviously to leverage that, would you be interested? Now, whether there's an agreement between the two parties is a totally different aspect here, which Macy can bring them up in the court case. Anyway, so its original lease on the billboard space included provisions that indefinitely barred other retailers from advertising on the sign. I think Macy's can have a strong case here because if you think about it, that's not good for competition here if they're going to, occupy that space. Now, if it were any other advertisement, I think that would be fair game. But since Macy's is on the retailer, selling to direct consumers, and Amazon is also at the same boat, imagine if Walmart were to put a billboard sign on top of Macy's there. I think Macy's has a strong case here. And obviously, on Macy's side, they say that they go on to say that Macy continues to have the rights relating to advertisement to that location. Maybe the rights, but I won't say rights. But the question is, they expect to realize that the benefits of these rights and have asked the courts to protect them. Now, I think if they can give the point of view in terms of anti-competitiveness, if they're going to occupy that space, since they're in the same industry here. But we have to wait and see who wins out here. Hopefully, Macy can get their sign back, which is a big marketing strategy if you're Amazon here. So anyway, so next, speaking of suing, so here we have another topic here related to that, and in this case, with the suing of Disney from Miss Johansson, from the Black Widow debacle. Now they're doing the attacking here, suing the heirs of Marvel creators, or heirs of Marvel creators here, for copyright termination. And it makes sense since they've invested a lot of money, and they continue to invest a lot in the Disney, the Marvel universe here, by continuing producing more films, TV series in their streaming services and so forth. But the question is, do they have the right, or does the heir, or even the creators who created those IPs have the right to block the copyright termination here? Anyway, according to koimoy.com, so Disney has sued the heirs of Marvel comic creators to keep the rights of Avengers characters from copyright termination, which I think it's a great strategy on their part. But I think there's a debate here as to, because if you think about it, the Marvel company who commissioned those comics way back in decades past, like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, that they were only tasked to create comics to sell for the consumer. So obviously, whatever the ideas that they got, the company would benefit from it. But I think there was no agreement as to what type of application those contents will be utilized. No one knew at the time that it could be used for filmmaking, streaming, or even in the gaming industry here. So obviously, credit should be given to those creators here. It won't be fair if Marvel were leveraging that, and now that that IP is so popular and all of those ideas came from those creators, shouldn't they get what they call this, credit where credit is due? And should they get royalty, similar to how music artists, when they created something, even though the music company publish it or sell it or market it, the music still is from the artist creation, so to speak. And I think I'm on the side of the creators here, since if there's no protection on the creators here, then for future references, why would creators create new characters here? Or even better, and you could just imagine if Stan Lee were not to create the known character, which is Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, Avengers, on and on and on. You could just imagine here, and without them, even Jack Kirby is not being recognized here. Even when they were still alive, you always see in the movies that the Mr. Stan Lee had an arrangement that he'll be paid for how many million? I think $1 million when the MCU film started, for the rest of his life. But predating that popularity, where was the credit there, right? And even Jack Kirby was trying to fight for his recognition of, he was part of a duo who created those popular characters that we have here. Anyway, so as you can see here, Disney now is suing the heirs. So obviously, sad to say that Mr. Stanley has passed away and Mr. Jack Kirby. So the heirs, who owns the rights now for their parents or for their dad's IPs, is trying to stop them from gaining those full rights here. Anyway, it was stated that the complaints from Disney stating that the heirs of the late, comic book geniuses, Steve Ditko, I was thinking of it. Anyway, and Gene Colan, for the different characters that they have popularized in mainstream culture. So they included that in the lawsuit that they should get full rights to those characters and story elements that have formed the base of. Yeah, but you benefited from their IP, from their intellectual property, and it won't be nice if, let's say, someone were to, don't give credit to, let's say, Mr. Walt Disney for creating Mickey Mouse and so forth. It won't work that way, right? But anyway, so the lawsuit followed after Liber and Ditko sent termination notice to reclaim the rights for Marvel characters such as Spider-Man here. And obviously, these notices mean that the creators and the heirs share the publisher's fault, which I think is reasonable here. I'm not saying that they should take full credit for the films or future films, but every time they use the IPs of characters here or even the storylines that they've created in the past, then they should benefit from it, right? As long as you use their names, their likeness, and their storylines and so forth. Just like, I think it makes sense for for many of the music or even novelists for who created the stories here and had to create that in their mind. Imagine when Stanley was telling how he came up with those characters at the time. So looking for, it takes a lot of creative juices here to be able to create one of the best characters, or popular characters in the world in superheroes history here. And but the studio argues that Marvel has sole creative control. Obviously, they purchase it from Marvel Studios here, so that Disney would have the rights to keep on, publishing more films, continuing it with, with the Marvel Phase 1, 2, 3, and how many phases they plan to do. But again, it stands to reason, if you do not reward those people who created those IPs, or give them a portion of the profits, then there will be no more creative incentive for people in the future to create more better stories, more characters. And as you can see here, one would think that when you think of Superman, it's a male character here, and then just to create another super person, they just create a female segment. But there's no basis from that until Supergirl came out, right? So just creating a separate gender for the same characteristics of that hero, if there's no origin, as to no precedent based on comics, which is what many of those films are trying to base their story. So obviously going to offend or piss off a lot of Marvel comic aficionados, even if it doesn't make sense what's been told in the story, and then if it's told a different way and presented in a different way. Take a look at the DCEU, how they terribly presented the Justice League here with Josh Whedon release here. But anyway, so obviously the case does involves an invalid attempt by means of termination notices here, whether the courts decide in favor for the studio here or for the creators here. Hopefully it would listen to the importance of the creativity in this. Imagine here that everything that you come up with, even though the company has the right to it, but at the end of the day, you should be recognized and be paid handsomely here. And obviously, unless there was an agreement at that time, but there wasn't. So I think that was the main issue here. So I think moving forward, maybe you need to create I think how NDA clauses that Amazon, Apple, or other tech companies are doing it in their companies nowadays if you want to avoid this problem. But we'll see how it pans out. Anyway, next we have here is sticking with technology. So obviously, cryptocurrency has been a popular means to invest your money, whether it's kind of volatile based on my personal experience. But question here is the adoption here. If people or businesses are willing to adopt these new technologies, then eventually it will be commonplace here. And one of the big companies that are adopting this technology is BitPay and Verifone here. So the payment options is going to be tremendous since many of the companies or many retailers, restaurants, grocery stores, and even more are using their technology from Verifone payment system. So according to techtimes.com, BitPay and Verifone is going to bring cryptocurrency payment option to many establishments from restaurants, grocery stores, and others as well. So BitPay and Verifone are partnering to bring the payment to the general wider public. Obviously, the world has been slowly accepting the existence of cryptocurrency, but adoption is still pretty low. It's just a source of investment, but using as a payment, obviously you have to convert this currency, which is a very laborious process. So but if businesses are willing to accept this, make it easier, the smoother transaction, I think it makes much more sense for people to adopt this technology here. So what will happen here, allow a cryptocurrency wallet to pay on checkouts or on payment channels on physical stores. So similar like tapping your debit card, your credit card, or even in this case your wallet card for cryptocurrency payment here. And I think if a lot more are starting to adopt here, which is good, but obviously one of the main concerns here is in terms of security, on the end user side, can it be hacked? How protected are you in terms of user safety here? Now, the advantages as mentioned, it no longer requires the conversion of crypto to real world currency here. So let's say it costs $5 to buy, let's say, a cup of coffee. Then you use cryptocurrency payment here, so they will automatically convert how much is that, making it easier. But how can we check that? So it's like, do I convert, let's say, my peso to dollar, so I would know how many current cryptocurrency value should I pay for a cup of coffee or something. But anyway, according to Bloomberg, they go on to say that people can now use their crypto wallets via BitPay to buy food or pay at a local merchant here that accepts payment via debit or even credit card that go to a specific machine. That's where the company comes in. Now, question, most of the machines used by merchants are used by Verifone, as mentioned. That's why the adoption would be easier or transitioning would be easier. But the question here is, would people be willing to use the cryptocurrency? Now, obviously, it's a small segment right now, but in 5-10 years time, will it be bigger, growing bigger, exponentially bigger? We'll find out. So the accessibility, the usage of swiping, paying your plastic card is similar to just with any other cards that you're using currently. So I mean, it makes it more convenient, in a say. But I'm still apprehensive in terms of security here. Obviously, with the advancement of technology, it goes hand in hand. Ease of convenience, more attacks on the user side. How do you protect those private information here? Anyway, in Asia, some Asian news regarding a company, a logistics company who's doing really well, has caught the eye of many, investors here in particular. So Ninjavan, a logistics company in Asia, particular in Singapore, has caught the eyes of Alibaba by investing a lot in their company. But the company has now raised almost $600 million, 578 to be exact. And according to Forbes.com, they can only do much more, so to speak. Sorry. So you can just imagine here, if you're the CEO here, it's going to be tremendous here, and growing that company in a span of, I think, less than 10 years from where they started to where they are now, spanning across ASEAN nations, not just in Singapore but in Vietnam, but also here in the Philippines. It's going to be tremendous. So that obviously raising capital's aim is not just to raise the valuation of the company, but to use those funds to expand even further the business. And based on their track performance, obviously a lot of companies or a lot of investors see potential in the capability of the company here. And it started way back in 2014, so almost 7 years ago. And when they started a capital of less than 300 million to now to almost 800 valuation, so which is pretty significant. So they're reaching the 1 billion mark here, and not bad. And obviously, with the way things are going for the company, IPO is not far away, which is they're planning, I think, sometime next year. So according to the CEO here, Mr. Lai Chang-wen, co-founder and CEO of the company, goes on to say the quality of investors joining in this round of investment is a clear signal that the market recognizes the emerging opportunities of e-commerce logistics. And I think the boom of e-commerce is tremendous, especially with the lockdown that happened last year, and obviously the eventual transitioning of the e-commerce growing and growing steadily with the big giants like Amazon and now other e-commerce businesses in Southeast Asia. Obviously, companies for like Ninja Band can benefit tremendously by providing the supply chain for delivering the products and services for many consumers here. And obviously, it goes on to say that how, as an entrenched player in the region, the company is positioned to take a central role in meeting the shifting demands of both businesses and consumers. And obviously, being able to meet those two stakeholders or partners, so to speak, would bring in tremendous profit for Ninja Van here. And obviously, I've received parcels from Ninja Van when I ordered, I think, from Shopee one time or another. And obviously, providing top-notch service is important to grow awareness, so that they would be the preferred logistics carrier in any region in Southeast Asia here. Now, it mentions here that it will use its funds to build infrastructure, so create more warehouses, invest on people, hire more people, more trucks, more deliveries, and even the technology platform, so that it can be easily communicate with their customers here and even their partner suppliers and store owners here. So creating a micro supply chain solution will help Southeast Asia. Obviously, the adoption of technology is somewhat an uphill battle, but it's inevitable with obviously with the rise of usage in internet for the past few years. Anyway, Ninja Van was started more than 7 years ago in Singapore as a last mile express logistics company here, and they've come a long way since that time. And it has become one of the region's fastest growing tech-enabled logistics companies here. And they have operations in Malaysia, Singapore, as mentioned, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and obviously here in the Philippines here. So hopefully they would do better and provide a better service, top-notch service that everybody could enjoy. Especially with dealing with delivering of parcels. Some I'm talking about all of them. They do not take care of their parcels, so they just throw it away. That's why when you receive it, it's it's damaged. The package itself, and I'm talking about the item itself. But if the package outside is damaged, there's a likelihood, if it's not wrapped properly or put inside the box, then it could damage it. Obviously, if I'm looking inside the product, obviously it gives a bad look for the platform, the seller, and even the logistics company here. So obviously, if it's delivered in pristine condition, then every party would be satisfied, and the customer would be inclined to order from that platform or that customers and use that logistics company here, and everybody's a win-win here. But obviously, it's not always the case here. But anyway, lastly, in terms of Singapore, so there's been a man versus animal saga going on here. We're talking about the growing population of otters here, according to Insider.com. That's taking over the streets and has killed those expensive koi fish. It's a koi fish, what you're seeing there. So it's a nice photo. It brings back the film. If you watch the Jaws films, brings that the nostalgic notion that no one is safe here. Now, what happened here? Now, obviously, having otters in your area shows a lot that your environment is ideal for otters to thrive on. But obviously, there has repercussions here in terms of how how it's going to affect obviously daily lives from local citizens as well as businesses here. And obviously, the culprit here is, they're going out of their way obviously to keep to survive, especially during the pandemic, is catching any type of fish, and in this case the expensive koi fish. Excuse me. Now there were official counts hovering 100 otters, so that's a lot of otters roaming around in the metro. So there's a country of otters known as the Zoke family. They raided the building's koi pond and then splashed into its pool. So obviously they're collateral damage of sorts. But the question here is, what is the government supposed to do here? Should they relocate them? Obviously, animals has the right to be where they are because it's their natural environment. It's us humans who's encroaching in their territory. But obviously, the animals and humans cohabitation will always bring conflict here. It even went as much as killing from a local church and killed nearly 100 fishes, and half of them were koi fishes, which is obviously, for those who are not familiar, are very hold in high valued esteem for fish aficionados, because they can be quite expensive, not just in the hundreds of dollars, $1,000, hundreds of thousands of, even one fish, Japanese koi fish, could go as high as 1.8, almost $2 million. So it's not to say the least that it's just a regular fish, so to speak. But the question here is, what do you think can be done to address this issue? Obviously, relocating the otters may be a temporary solution. They might come back. And obviously, the issue here is, how are they able to grow significantly their population now? This could be attributed with what happened with last year with the lockdown with many countries here, in particular in Singapore. So obviously, they were allowed to grow unimpededly. So catching fishes with no one to stop them from doing what they're made to do, would have severe impact, especially if you have koi fishes in your retail stores, and which I think one of the business owners were attacked recently here. And despite that, what's interesting here, public opinion remains fairly planted on the author's corner, meaning obviously, we want to protect the interests of our animals here as a caretaker of the world, so to speak. But the question is, how can we find solutions to stop their proliferation? Do we create an animal reserve for the otters of sorts? I don't know. Actually, there's one interesting story. A former actor, Jazreel Lowe, who captured otters, who killed his koi in one of his beauty spa that he owns. And obviously, he is for the protection of animals, and so do I. But obviously, the proximity to one another has causing some harm here. Now obviously, they haven't harmed any humans here, which is good, but obviously that could escalate in the future. Hopefully they could find a more remedial solution so that both parties could benefit. Humans could exist, live their own lives. Others could exist in their own habitat and live their own lives, relax in the sea, or in the pool with their catch of their fresh kois here. Anyway, I think that concludes our discussion for this week's episode. Thank you for watching. For more business news, stay here with Business Focus Live here. As always, don't forget to help support the channel by, if you like or enjoy watching this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. As always, I'll see you next week. Same time, preferably, but same channel as always. Take care. Thank you.